Job security? Let's get real. That expired years ago. And if you haven't been in a search for a while, you will, by choice or when choice runs out. Most executives I talk to stay way too long. They see the signs and then they rationalize them away. But the real trap isn't the job or the transition. It's this faulty belief that what comes next has to be worse. So screw that. I built this show for you and for other executives who want more but aren't sure how to get there. Let's start with this. You already know that the old rules don't work. The resume, just a piece of paper, and the recycled advice, more noise. This is Career Blast and a Half for executives over 40 who want smarter moves, faster wins, and zero wasted motion. I'm Lauren Greif, and I've spent my career helping leaders like you land where they belong, on purpose, with power, more earnings, and without apology. So let's go. We keep talking about how we're in a skills-based hiring marketplace. Well, what does that mean? Number one. Number two, what I really want to understand is, why is that a big aha, right? Aren't we always in a skills-based hiring market? So today, Raina Gandhi is here to talk about this really cool concept called the T-shape and really help us understand not only why skills-based hiring is different and what that implication is for each one of you, but also what even happened to the ladder? What is this ladder and where has it gone? Raina Gandhi, thank you for just your wonderful clarity and advocacy in helping us all better understand this. Please, share with our audience, number one, what I've missed, but also specifically that first question about why are we talking about skills-based hiring in this particular market?
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about this. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot because, as we know, the market has been really wonky and so many people are reaching out because they're losing their jobs and they don't know what's next. And there's a lot of talk in the market around people are getting hired, they're overqualified, their skills are more than what they need them to be, but they're just taking any job. So there's just a lot of noise in the market. So happy to clarify some things. And I think that the way we may want to look at this is it really does get easier when we think about careers as the career ladder traditionally, right? So traditionally, we would get a degree, we would join a company, and then we would climb the ranks, right? Maybe 20, 30 years in our parents' generation, the baby boomers, you'd get a gold watch, you'd get a pension, all of those things. So expertise meant going deeper in one narrow specialty. And that worked for prior generations. But now that brings a lot of limitation because, well, technology is moving a lot faster, right? And technology is moving faster than the career cycles are moving. So it's 5 to 7 years versus 30 to 40 years. Then companies are
I just want to wait.
Yeah.
My research has also indicated the average C-suiter, 3 to 3.5 years for their tenure on average. Is that am I off?
No, that's about right? Because you're talking about staying in the C-suite, right? Or getting to the C-suite.
I'm talking about within the C-suite role.
Yes.
The average tenure for staying in that position, about 3.5 years.
Yes. And actually, that is 100% right. And that is irrespective of I think you can even generalize that for industries across the markets.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the skills that really got you hired, right? If you think about it, in 3 to 5 years, those skills are often obsolete. So this concept of remote work, this concept of the gig economy and all these organizational hierarchies it's making everything less relevant from that perspective. So when you think about the ladder, it's not really climbing up and moving up in a company that way. It's more like a mosaic, or it's more like a lattice, I would say. Um, because the latter really, it fosters this narrow definition of success. It essentially equates progress with upward mobility, right? And that's a very narrow definition that does not apply to our professionals today. So this can lead professionals to feel really stagnant or maybe unsuccessful if they really aren't climbing. That doesn't help. They may be deeply engaging in their current role. They may be making significant contributions, but this is going to undervalue all their expertise. And so there's that piece of it. There's also the piece of it really limits skill development and adaptability when you're climbing, when you think of the traditional climbing up the ladder, right? So
So I
you're
want to just
focusing on vertical progression, and that often overlooks the importance of developing this diverse skill set, right? Everyone's always talking about this diverse, and we'll get into that with the T model, but this ability to adapt to these changing markets, changing technology. And if you become hyper focused on acquiring skills that are relevant to the next promotion, you could be neglecting opportunities that are going to broaden your knowledge and your capabilities. So a
okay,
lot of
so
this, right? Create
the
Sorry, go
old
ahead.
equation, I just want to make sure that we synthesize this, right? The old equation from the ladder meant progress equals promotion, right? Like I have this and this is a little bit more convoluted, right? Because of course you want upward mobility. Of course you want to be a hypo. Of course you want to like have all these things that say I'm ambitious. So part of the I guess the double whammy here is that we have the ladder that is embedded in our thinking that that's the definition of success. And then we also have this notion that uh, how else would I measure my achievement level if it wasn't for promotion?
Right. Right. That's exactly right. But the reality is we need to move beyond those limitations because there's a fundamental shift, and how we see career development has changed so radically, especially because of all the technology. So a career lattice or a mosaic or something along those lines, I think that's a much better metaphor because they offer more flexible, dynamic, and individually centric approaches, right? So if you're a leader at an organization, the idea is to cultivate that sort of mindset in your people, in your organization, so that you almost encourage them to avoid this concept of the ladder because
So
it helps with growth.
replace this replace this equation. If progress used to equal promotion, progress and achievement now equals what?
Ooh, that's a great question because that gets us into the T shape. So depth and breadth.
Depth and breadth,
Yes.
right? Which is
Yes.
why we're calling this go deep, not wide.
Right.
Oh,
Exactly. So the career ladder specializes, it promises security in specialization. But the world where changes are constant, right? We know that change is the only constant. Security comes from adaptability. So if you really wanted to use one word instead of depth and breadth, I would say progress is adaptability and showing that you can, and it's not as simple as wearing many hats. That's not adaptability. It is adapting to multiple generations in the workplace, adapting to changing technology, adapting to more organizations, right? Flatter organizations. So there's a lot. And so what the T shape does, the T shaped professional isn't hedging their bets. So they're multiplying their options. They're in 2025, the options are the new job security. You know, people are always talking.
woo! Baby, hold on a minute,
All right,
right?
let's do it.
Okay, I wanna, like, do an autopsy right now on the T shape because this is a very familiar concept to you,
Yeah.
but if I didn't know anything about the T shape, like, I can see the T in my head, right? Top, line down the bottom or in the middle. Why is it called the T shape? What is it symbolic of? And then specifically, how do I know if I'm a T?
Right. Okay. So let's start from the basics. Okay. So we've got RT. So let's do the vertical. The vertical is going, that part is going deep. So you still need to be exceptional at something, right? This is your anchor, your credibility, your way in the door. So maybe you want to pick a core discipline, and you're going to develop some kind of genuine expertise. Maybe
So this
this
is
is
like
your
you're the SME, right? You're the
yes,
subject
I was
matter.
just gonna say you're the your primary value proposition. This is your primary value proposition, right? So here's the key though. This can evolve over time, but it's not a life sentence, right? It's you may be deep in data analysis right now. But in 5 years, that depth might be in AI implementation. It's going to constantly change. So that's the depth part of it. And then the top part, the top of the T, the horizontal, the strategic width, yeah? Um, so the depth by itself is it makes you a little bit fragile. You need the complementary skills that are going to really help you multiply your impact. And that's why breadth matters. That's why strategic width matters. So let's look at it from the lens of deep expertise in isolation. That's becoming increasingly automated or commoditized, right? Commoditized. The value of combining these skills in unique ways, therein lies the value. So you become someone who can bridge domains. You have the data analyst who understands marketing, who understands the engineer, who can communicate with executives. So you're a lot harder to replace because your combination is unique. And we've been saying that in different words for generations, right? What makes you you when you're in an interview, sell what makes you you because that's what's going to help you stand out. All of that is true, but I think really hyper focusing on these ideas and these opportunities is going to be what's going to help move the needle forward for people.
I am blowing the lid off of our best kept secret, our 30-day blast program. Yeah, you heard it. 30 days. We have seen so much success for this program that past clients have landed in that 30 days and increased their compensation 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, over 100%. Now, not everybody lands and earns that much in 30 days, but my point is it prepares you. And in 30 days, if you're not out of there with a changed mindset and changed, clear and simple ways to be able to navigate the market this year, then we'll gladly refund your misery and you can go back to applying now. Check out the link below for the next 30-day blast, and we would love to have you there because we live for your success, and that's what's really important. See you then.
So bring this to present day. So here I am, like raise my hand. I'm in the market, my area of my subject matter expertise, my vertical line is, I'm going to pick something very, very, very common, right? Very, very dense in terms of what's happening in the marketplace. I'm in marketing, right? Which a lot of people, let's face it, are in marketing. So how do I combine the vertical line, let's just call that the legs or the root, with what is on the skills area to be dangerous in the marketplace vis-a-vis the skills-based hiring?
Yeah. So let's talk then about powerful T combinations in the marketing space, right?
Ooh,
So
yes.
that might look like a marketing strategist and data analytics. And marketing is a great example actually because there's there's so many different types of marketing, right? So you can be a project manager and you can also be a financial modeler. You can be a creative writer, which also falls in marketing, and an SEO growth tactics expert. You can be a developer and have design skills, right? So this idea of go deep, not wide has a nuance. It's the mistake that people make are they think T-shape means being mediocre at everything. It's like when you apply to college and they tell you you want to be good at everything, and then you apply to college and then it changes and they say no, you have to really specialize in one thing, and it's neither. It's what people or what companies are looking for now is being strategic about your breadth.
Mhm.
And I
I
would
like the
say,
way you framed it before when you said strategic with, because what I also wanna poke holes in, not you specifically, but is the conversations around, well, I don't wanna limit myself, so I wanna we know that if you have an area of expertise and you are known for that vertical, it's very helpful to decision makers because they're not guessing, where should I put this person? How do they relate? Why do you matter? Where should you go? So you need to have both. And I think that how you're explaining this is very, very important because you want to be careful that you don't lose either axis.
yeah, yeah. So if you are going to, if you really want to get this sort of right? Think about it as adjacency, not randomness. So choose horizontal skills that are going to complement your vertical skills. So if you're a designer, don't go for accounting. Learn front end coding, right? Um, and you want things to be compounding, not scattered. So again, it's not be good at everything. It's each new skill should multiply this value of what you already know. And so I'm also not saying start from scratch because that's not a viable plan. That's not a sustainable plan, especially in this market. And then look at signals, not the noise. So for what I mean by that is it's better to be proficient in 3 or 4 complementary areas. You'd rather be proficient in 3 to 4 complementary areas than barely be functional in 10, right? So that's and I think that a lot of people make that mistake. I want to have all of these preferred skills and required skills. It doesn't work like that, right? You're not going to hit every single thing. And if you do hit every single thing, then you may be overqualified for that job. So thinking about it from that perspective as well, we always say women in general, a man will look at the skills and they will apply if they make 40% or 60% of the required skills. Women, we need closer to 100%. If we're not meeting the required skills, then we don't apply for these jobs. So that hurts us, right? And I'm going off on a tangent here because that's where my mind always goes, how it impacts women. But yeah, so that's the idea is breadth and depth.
So let's take this into like a real life scenario on LinkedIn because I'm sure you have this. I'm sure, every person in their job search is always noodling on how to align the headline to address this T-shaped area, how to be able to impart both that strategic width without limiting the opportunities that are coming in. So how do you suggest that we leverage this in practical and tactical terms when it comes to headlines, when it comes to even sharing anything about thought leadership or driving that impact? What is your kind of like, here's your not even hack, here's your best approach to doing that?
So if you say specifically about LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is kind of almost like the new resume. People will take 8 seconds to read your resume, but they'll probably dig a little bit deeper on your LinkedIn profile. So the resume is becoming less and less important. But I think one stat that's important to note here is about 2/3 of employers are using skills-based hiring, with half of the positions that are going to be flexible on degree requirements. So that's another piece of it. So it as you are LinkedIn is a great platform because you're building in public, right? You can you can talk about things through blogs, you can write case studies, you can post things. So there's that piece of it. And then I would say micro credentialing is also it's more recognized now than it's ever been in the past. And there was a dip for a while where they said, okay, everybody's getting some kind of credential or some kind of certification. But again, now with the market the way that it is helping. That doesn't mean go out and get every single certification. That's not helpful, right? But what it means is if there's a certain boot camp, if there's a certain skill that is going to be required in this job. Go get it. Because it's showing that you're forward thinking. And if you haven't gotten it yet, but you're in the process, put that on LinkedIn somewhere that says expected in March 2026 or whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something else. And then I think on LinkedIn, showing projects over positions are going to be important, because that side project is really going to demonstrate that you have a certain level of competence, and that sometimes can matter more than your job title, because as we see, job titles are all over the place. What a VP is in one company is very different from what a VP is in a different company.
So when you say side projects, are those passion projects? Are they, what is qualified as a side project?
Yeah, so it could be anything. It could be I'm completely making this up, and I don't know why my brain went to scuba diving, but let's say you are in finance, but you spend a certain time of the year, and you are half of an owner or partial owner in a scuba diving outfit, right? So showing that you've got that passion, showing the skills that are going to be very different from being a finance leader. So certain projects like that, showing that you are, again, I don't like to use this idea of well-rounded, but showing that you are multidimensional
Mm.
is going to be important. And then it's not just important to be multidimensional. It's really important to be able to articulate that, right? You have to articulate your skills. So I'm a marketing manager is a lot weaker than I design growth experiments. I analyze funnel data, and I optimize conversion rates. That's going to be very different, right?
Ooh, that's a good
So,
one, right?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the key. So when you're introducing, and I feel like I'm going in a different direction again, but I find this to be really important. When you're at networking events, you're looking for a job, for me to go up to people and say, I'm a leadership coach for women and a speaker, is very different from me saying, I help professional women in male dominated industries when they feel overworked, undervalued, and underpaid, get in positions, articulate their value, and be in rooms where decisions are being made,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's where the changes are going to happen, it's going to happen in those rooms. And that's what women want now. So that's a lot better, that you get a lot more out of that than you do the leadership coach and speaker, and all of that is true, but that's not really right. So the articulation of your skills is also incredibly critical.
What I really love about this is that the watchword that is essentially the umbrella, whether it's with the scuba project, whether it's the articulation of how your value proposition is that it speaks to levels of curiosity that lie underneath the skills. It says lifelong learner. It says, I'm doing this and taking the initiative because I am, exploring this area. It speaks to adaptability. And what you said in the earlier equation is not about it's forecasting a level of like fluidity versus rigidity. And I think that that's the distinction that I think that you're really making. When I think about skills-based hiring, and I'm so glad you're here to kind of demystify it, I think of box checking. I think I have to have this and I have to have that similar to that. But that's really not the distinction that you're making here. What you're saying and what I'm loving about is that these are predictors and signals of how you are going to be dealing with uncertainty.
Yeah. And you can checkbox it, but you're exactly right. The better approach would be to reframe that and ask yourself and audit yourself. You can ask yourself monthly questions. Um, there are certain frameworks that you can use to be able to do this so that you can be more effective, right?
We're going into yet another cycle of hiring because typically first quarter will be when companies have renewed budgets. People will be experiencing what they call the fresh start effect, which means I'm going to be I'm finally going to put my nose to the grindstone and work towards that next position. If you had one piece of advice for anybody who is either starting or has needs to refresh their approach, what would that be with respect to the T-shape or skills-based hiring?
So if you are, and this is a tough one, I think if you are, can I do two? One
You
for
could
people
do
who are in
two.
current
Well,
roles,
yeah.
and then those who are looking.
Okay,
So,
fair.
right? Because I want to make sure that I hit both. So, excuse me. For those who are in current roles, the 70-20-10 rule. So, 70% of skill development happens through challenging assignments at work. So, ask yourself, are you doing that? 20% through relationships, feedback, and mentorship. And I know that seems counterintuitive because everybody's always talking about relationships. What I'm saying is that doesn't mean that 20 relationships are only 20% important. They're very, very important. I'm just saying that 20% of it happens through these relationships and the feedback and the mentorship. And then 10% is through formal training. So really the focus most people have is, oh, I've got to get the training because I've got to get that on my resume. So they really only do that 10%. But if you spend 70% of your energy on skill development based on specific challenging assignments at work, it's a lot more effective. So if you're in a role, I would recommend that. If you are looking, I think it's important to ask yourself a few questions. I like to call it an audit, right? So what's one skill I use regularly that could become obsolete? And then whatever that skill is, start learning whatever's replacing it.
Mm,
The second would be, what's one capability that's going to double my impact if I had it,
mm,
right? That's something that you're going to add to your horizontal bar. And then the third question would be, what's one project that I could do better or I could do this quarter that would demonstrate both the depth and the breadth?
ooh, wow. Okay. I hope you guys were taking notes, and if you haven't, we'll have a transcript available. But that right there is essentially your $1,000,000 bullet in terms of how to think about it, whether you're in a role or whether you're in the job search itself, right? And I know that this more clinical way of thinking might be very different. I also want to say it's gold because from everything that I know, and I'm sure you too, Raina, is like it's easy to get lost and unstructured in this. And so I want you to prioritize the way that you are utilizing your T shape, how you can augment it, and how you can deepen it. And Raina, like, again, thank you so much for breaking this down. I learned so much from you, and I learned so much on your from coming here prepared to make sure that we have this conversation. And thank you for also supporting so many women and job seekers and leadership folks to really be able to stand out and own and earn what it is that they deserve. So, everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you like this episode, you know what I'm going to say. Do us a big fat solid. It literally takes no time. Rate this show. And then if you really want to give us some love, please write a Apple Podcast review and help us to continue to grow. So we'll be signing off for now, and we will see you again next week. Thank you. Thank you.
I am blowing the lid off of our best kept secret, our 30-day blast program. Yeah, you heard it. 30 days. We have seen so much success for this program that past clients have landed in that 30 days and increased their compensation 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, over 100%. Now, Not everybody lands and earns that much in 30 days, but my point is it prepares you. And in 30 days, if you're not out of there with a changed mindset and changed, clear and simple ways to be able to navigate the market this year, then we'll gladly refund your misery and you can go back to applying now. Check out the link below for the next 30-day blast, and we would love to have you there because we live for your success, and that's what's really important. See you then.